Sunday.
There you go.
First, I just want to tell you thank you so much for coming this evening. I know with everybody's schedule, it's difficult to take out time. That obviously Dr. Odenbo is very committed to make sure that our families are staying informed and so forth. And obviously, we know technology, the World Wide Web, as parents, grandparents, that's something that we need to stay on top of with our children. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing an introduction because it's all in the PowerPoint, but I do want to introduce Doug Crawford. He is our presenter with Protect Young Eyes, and I think we're in for a real treat. So again, thank you for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And the great thing is we're recording, so those that weren't able to come, they're going to be able to see that, or if you want to go back over it, it's like a home run for us in Monroe's ISD. So, Doug, you take it away.
I'm going to take that from you.
Yes, sir. There you go.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Well, good evening. My name is Doug Crawford, and I represent an organization called Protect Young Eyes. And it's my joy to be able to be with you. Interesting fact, before last week, or at least a week and a half ago, I'd never been to the state of Texas. I've been all over the country. I'm 40 years old, never made it to Texas. 2 weeks ago, I spoke at a high school in Houston. This weekend, I was at a conference in Houston. Today, I'm in Glen. I was supposed to, in a week and a half, be in Lubbock, but they rescheduled for September, but I'm going to be in Midland again in May. So I've never been to Texas, but in a matter of 2 months, I'll be here 5 or 6 times. It blows my mind, but it's a beautiful state. I live in Southwest Florida now, born and raised in Michigan, and about 2 years ago, my wife finally convinced me that she hates winter enough in Michigan that we needed to move, and so we did. And speaking of my wife, I will in just a second show you my family. Right here is my son-in-law, Marquel. He and my daughter Cheyenne got married in November of 2020, so they just celebrated their first anniversary in this past November. And behind her hands right here is growing my grandson. April 13th is the due date, and so again, remember I'm 40. It's a little young to be a grandfather, but you can tell that it's unlikely that that these are biological kids when you look at the two of us. A lot more melanin in the skin of my son-in-law, daughter, and oldest son. But so Marquel and Cheyenne and little guy, can't tell his name because it's a secret. And then to the right of Cheyenne is my son Ryan. Ryan and Cheyenne are biologically cousins. They're raised in the same household. And when Ryan's mom, who's their caretaker, passed away in 2010, Cheyenne and Ryan were 12 and 9 years old. They needed a place to live, and I had been Cheyenne's youth pastor for a year. And so my wife and I said, come live with us. And so that was 2010, so we've been a family since then, and it's awesome. We went from no kids to 12 and a 9-year-old that are grieving the death of their mom, and learning all about African hair and skin and all of this stuff. It was a learning curve for all of us. And then my wife and I are high school sweethearts, and we grew up together. My mother-in-law changed my diapers in the church nursery, so there's absolutely zero secrets with the in-laws. And then this is my 6-year-old son, Joshua Douglas. He goes by JD. And then Saturday, just 2 days ago, my son Silas turned 4. And so this is my family. I take some extended time to share about my family because I think it's helpful and beneficial for you to know that I'm a husband and a father and not just some random dude that shows up at school auditoriums and talks about technology. I've wrestled through this stuff just like you have. I've had great successes and just some awful failures as well as a parent. And some of it's trial by fire. We're digital foreigners raising digital natives, and there's parts of it that just absolutely doesn't make sense. I mean, none of us would have touched the screen of our television growing up. especially if we had shag carpet between the sofa and the television. You didn't have to get to the TV before that electric current arced from the screen to your finger and zapped you. And then you let your younger siblings do it and you laughed. But now my television, before we mounted up on the wall, had fingerprints all over it because every screen is a touch screen in the mind of my kids. And so it's just a totally different environment. And so Protect Young Eyes exists to help kind of bridge some of the generational gaps, but then also to help keep you up to date with the ever-changing technological landscape. And so a little bit more about the organization. We are now 7 years old. Founded in 2015, we desire to show families, schools, and churches how to create safer digital spaces with trust, tips, and training. Used through a variety of media. We have an app, the Protect app. If you search Protect Young Eyes in either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, you'll see our app come up. It's not a monitoring or filtering app, it's an educational advocacy app. There's videos you can watch with your kids and discussion guides to ask questions and discuss things after watching the video. There's 50-some lessons and over 500 little screens that you can kind of slide through and read about digital tips and app reviews and how to set up your Wi-Fi router. We have a monthly newsletter called the PYE Download. We have, if you are faith-based, and even if you're not, these are helpful, but it comes from a faith base. Our PYE Minute radio segments, there was a Christian radio station in Southwest Michigan that wanted us to do 60-second little radio spots for their drive-in and drive-home that are tech-related, and so you can register for and sign up for those. Those to be sent. There's 50-some of those that can be sent to your inbox. We have our website, protectyoungeyes.com. We do live and virtual presentations, and we're featured in the documentary Childhood 2.0. I highly, have anybody heard of or watched Childhood 2.0 before this evening? All right. I have homework for you before the end of the weekend. All right, so that's giving you a full 7 days. It's on Amazon Prime. I think you can find it on YouTube. If you search Childhood 2.0, their website I think still has the entire 2-hour documentary. It's just under 2-hour documentary, and I would highly recommend that you watch it and then think, which of my kids or grandkids am I going to watch this with the next time? And let that be a way that you can discuss these things together. Anybody ever been to our website, protectyoungeyes.com? And I'm okay if okay, like 4 of you. Awesome. Add that to the next thing for homework, all right? Take time to be able to get to know our website. We have blog posts, app reviews of over 100 apps that your kids are using. We have how to set up parental controls and monitoring and filtering on any internet-connected device, from smart televisions to Xboxes to your iPad or your Kindle, whatever the case is. You go to our website and we have step-by-step circles, arrows, touch this, swipe this, do this, screenshots, all this stuff, because we recognize that it's overwhelming. And so we want to make the point A to Z as quickly as possible for you and as easy as possible for you to kind of help you navigate through setting those things up. We also, not only are we working at grassroots to, speaking to crowds of parents and students all over the country, we've probably spoken to, I think by now, about 15,000 parents and probably 50 to 60,000 students in our 7 years all over the country. And during the pandemic, we did webinars that were in 30 countries early on in COVID. And so we do those kind of quick, easy, kind of informational things, but if all we do is let you be aware of what's going on, but we don't do anything about the laws that are allowing some of this stuff to go on, we're not fully helping parents. And we really, really desire to do that. And so I'm going to show you, it's a 6-minute video, and this is Chris giving testimony in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and this was a bill that was in front of them in July of 2019. Change of presidency and COVID kind of delayed things, but just a week and a half to 2.5 weeks ago, I think it was 2 Wednesdays ago, it went before both the House and the Senate again, and their committees, and is going to the floor to be discussed. And so I just highly recommend that you pay attention here, and I also want you to be thinking of, this is the world that my kids currently live in.
Senator Blumenthal, and members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing all of us this opportunity to speak today. I cannot think of a more noble cause for all of us to be spending our time on than the safety and protection of our children. I began Protect Young Eyes 5 years ago because the internet is complex, and even diligent parents are overwhelmed by the digital choices their children are facing. Through thousands of hours of research, hundreds of presentations in schools around the country, and dozens of articles examining digital trends, we have witnessed both the wonderful potential and the troubling and pervasive darkness that exists in the pockets of millions of young people today. I'm certain in the course of today's discussion we will hear difficult stories. I wish they were uncommon. In March 2019, CNN reported that Instagram was the leading social media platform for child grooming by sexual predators. Our own test accounts quickly discovered that young people, particularly young girls, can be hunted like prey. We started an Instagram account with 2 photos and tried to mimic the behavior of an average teen girl. We posted 2 selfies with 3 hashtags each, searched a few hashtags, and liked a few photos. Within a week, we had dozens of men sending us images of their genitals, telling us they were horny, and sending us hardcore pornography through direct messages. Even after we told all of them that we were only 12, they were relentless. A recent poll of 2,000 teens found that nearly 75% of them had received pornographic direct messages from strangers on Instagram, even if they had a private account. But you won't find any warnings in the App Store descriptions for Instagram that mention anything about sexual predators, direct message risks, sex trafficking, or hardcore pornography. Instagram's defaults are not set for child safety or data privacy, even though Instagram is rated 12+ by Apple and 13+ by Google. At Protect Young Eyes, we've also seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat, both used by 75% of teens today. Many Instagram predators quickly shuttle kids over to Snapchat, where evidence disappears. For example, one relentless pedophile on Instagram who calls himself Daddy invites young girls to join him in Snapchat with Instagram posts like 12+-year-old slave girls, obedient whores only, or hit me up on Snap to be Daddy's naughty girl. Snapchat is where explicit content on Pornhub lives just seconds away from every user through backdoors within the app. The app knowingly allows a well-documented list of porn performers to make thousands of dollars daily through their premium Snap accounts. Snapchat is where harmless-looking face filters can encourage kids to share their location on Snap Map. It's the app that gave a Coors Beer ad to 13-year-olds, even though they tout age gating. It's the app where every kid, regardless of age, has access to the Discover News section, where they are taught how to engage in risky sexual behaviors such as hookup, group, anal, or torture sex, how to sell drugs, and how to hide internet activity from parents using incognito mode. But again, you won't find anything in Snapchat's App Store descriptions that warn parents about premium Snapchat accounts, predator risks of using Snap Maps, or the hyper-sexualized content in Discover News. Snapchat is rated 12+ by Apple and 13+ by Google. Tech companies will tell us that ratings are already in place. However, ratings are not uniform, lack transparency, and there's little accountability for inaccurate ratings. For example, Twitter was rated 4+ for a decade, even though hardcore porn and prostitution was everywhere. It is still breaking Apple and Google's no porn policy, but only claims infrequent or mild sexual content in the app description. Netflix is rated 4+ in Apple's App Store, but teen in Google Play. VPNs, which allow teens to circumvent parental controls, are rated 4+. Most social media platforms are rated 12+ by Apple, even though COPPA restricts use by children until age 13. Obviously, the current app ratings process is broken. Tech companies will tell us that protecting kids is a parent's responsibility. However, this position ignores the ubiquitous nature of the internet. Even if I do everything right to protect my own 14-year-old daughter, with almost 90% of teens owning a smart device, a simple ride on the bus or a visit to a friend's house can expose her to life-altering content. Never before in human history have young people had the ability to so radically change the trajectory of each other's lives so quickly. Tech companies will tell us that safeguards are already in place, but it currently takes over 30 steps to properly set up parental controls on an iPhone. We need to simplify this process to help more parents protect their children. For example, better age-based defaults would instantly and easily protect millions of kids. The addition of easy controls over school and bedtime could shut off distracting apps during these very critical times. Tech companies will tell us that regulating apps is too big of a job, it can't be done. However, video games are already successfully doing it, and the ESRB shows us a path that could be applied by reasonable individuals to apps. In fact, it was Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook who recently said, "I believe we need more effective role for governments and regulators." And we agree. Our hope is to create safer digital places for young people. Two simple solutions could change everything. First, create a uniform, independent, and accountable rating system for apps. And second, enact better defaults based on the age provided during device and app setup. Let's fix this for the kids. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Yuck, right? It's heartbreaking, and I've seen this testimony hundreds and hundreds of times, but to be reminded that very simple things could be done that could make a significant change in the digital experiences of our children. And so we're actively fighting and advocating for you and for your families so that we can create safer digital environments. Because honestly, many of the laws that were written that are currently governing our current internet life were written in the late 90s and early 2000s. And if you think of how much the internet has changed since AOL dial-up to where you had to wait for the screeching modem to connect, and then hopefully you didn't have too many images on your homepage, it doesn't take forever to load, to having live streaming portable devices. The iPhone came out in 2007. So if these laws were written before the advent of the iPhone, we realize that they're significantly outdated. And so we partnered with even state legislators and helped craft a bill that went before the governor in Utah that he signed just this last year. And so we're working tirelessly to help parents and grassroots, then also from the bottom up, but also from the top down, to help change the laws and then create safer environments for all of our kids. Because we believe here, what we call the inverted responsibility triangle, where we currently see that the greatest impact of the current internet laws and monitoring laws, the greatest impact is upon our children, but they have the least amount of ability to change anything. And so we want to flip this triangle on its head so that those who have the power to do something about it, do something about it, and then impact our families significantly. And so you say, okay, Doug, I agree, stop. You're hammering this nail way too many times. And so you go and you search parental controls on your app store, and then all of a sudden you find out there's more than 3 options. Which one do I do? In fact, there's more than 20 options. Now, it's endless when looking for solutions and ways to be able to go about this. And so you do your search and you're just overwhelmed, and so instead of trying to narrow it down and do all the work to do that, you're like, it's just overwhelming. I totally understand that. I would feel the exact same way. That's why we exist. To help cut through the clutter, to provide reasonable and reliable, trustworthy resources and reviews so that you're able to cut through all the noise and say, okay, here's some people that have done the work that I can trust, they're reputable, and I can go to see what they have to say to kind of help navigate and direct those kinds of things. And as parents, this is that hard part, because in so many other areas of life, we know more than our kids. And this is one of those areas that we just have to raise the white flag and confess. They're always going to know more than us. No matter what we do, they're always going to find ways to get around everything that we set up. And that parental controls alone aren't going to do all of it. And so we have to realize this. And so our current reality here, as in the environment that our kids are growing up in, we look at the global numbers to the top 4 apps in the United States. In fact, we do an entire 90-minute presentation on just these 4 apps: Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And and those are the top 4 apps in the United States, then we look at their global monthly usership. Snapchat is at 500 million. TikTok and Instagram are at just over 1 billion, and YouTube is at 2 billion monthly average users worldwide. And so we have to concede that the internet is here to stay, that these apps are going to have influence. If our kids don't have the apps on their devices, their friends may, or the neighbors may, and so it's going to have influence and impact on our kids. In fact, a few years ago, it was 75% of adolescents had Snapchat, but over 90% of them were influenced and impacted by it, because if they didn't have it, they rode the school bus with friends that did, or they went to sleepovers with friends that did. And so we're still impacted and influenced in these ways. And one of the things that we do from time to time is schools will ask us to do anonymous surveys of their student body. And so one of the schools that we talked to, this was a public school in central Michigan, and one of the questions, it was yes or no, a creeper has tried to reach out to me. And we didn't define what a creeper was, we let them as the student determine what they believed a creeper was. And over 20% of 3rd graders and up to, I think, 43% of 8th graders, and this is pre-COVID, said, yes, a creeper's trying to reach out to me. And in fact, during COVID, Utah alone saw a jump of 50% of child predator reports during COVID alone. Because where the kids are is where the predators are. If our kids are on technological devices, then the online predators are going to find and get access to them. So you just need to be aware of these things. And we also need to recognize that all apps with a chat feature will always have predatory activity. Roblox, YouVersion's Bible app, Fitbit, yes, if there's chat, there's going to be predatory activity. And as parents, we can sometimes think, well, not my kid, that's NMK. Not my kid. My kid wouldn't look at that stuff. If my kid saw that stuff, he or she would tell me. We have a really open conversation. If my kid saw pornographic content, they would talk to me about it. Did you talk to your parents when you saw porn for the first time? You absolutely, I didn't. I got caught, but I absolutely didn't initiate that conversation. And there was no way I was going to initiate that conversation. In fact, my mom works for a nonprofit organization, and I looked at it for the first time on her work computer, which was monitored and filtered. And so I had to go and talk to her boss as a high school kid and say, yep, I'm the dude that looked at porn, I'm sorry. I was like, oh, that was the worst thing in the world. And I'm a pastor's kid, so again, it gets into every family. It doesn't matter if you have a faith base or not, it gets in, all right? And what Edward Wilson said this, that the real problem of humanity is the following: we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. Our technology seems to know everything about us. It seems to be everywhere. It seems to have power and control over all of our kids. And it's just really incredible in just a short period of time. When you think of market penetration, when TikTok really came onto the scene in 2017, and there's over 1 billion people using it every month, and that was 2021 numbers, end of 2021. So in less than 5 years, the market penetration is over 1 billion people using their product every month. It's just incredible how quickly these things come and then go. Anybody watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix? All right, if you haven't, take some time to do that. I feel as though The Social Dilemma kind of works as a confessional booth of sorts for the people who created the technology, like the person who invented the like button and others. They say, yeah, we knew what we were doing. In fact, I'm going to show you a clip from Sean Parker, who's the founding president of Facebook. We knew what we were doing, but we did it anyway. And now we kind of feel badly about it because intentionally hacked the neurological development of our users. And so if you don't believe me, I'll let Sean say those exact words
Entrepreneur
here in a
Sean
second.
Parker says he's not sure how much Facebook is benefiting society. Parker was the founding president of Facebook when the company started over a decade ago. He recently made some very jarring comments about social media exploiting the vulnerabilities in human psychology during a conversation with Axios. Here's what he had to say.
You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, you know, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, you know, and it's me, it's Mark, it's Kevin Systerman, Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
And so sadly, the impact that this is having on the most vulnerable in our society is alarming. Since 1999, the year I graduated from high school, all the numbers are trending in the wrong direction when it comes to mental health, and not only just suicidal ideation, but also actuation. And so in the most recent study that we have, again, we're at February of 2022, so hopefully they'll come out with their study for the year after, so into 2020. But in February 2021, the National Center for Health Statistics released a study showing that the overall suicide deaths from 1999 to 2019 increased 32% for all Americans. If we were to look at just the female population, this is 10, if you can't read numbers, this is 10 to 14-year-old girls. And again, I'm not saying that social media and technology is the primary influencer or there's causation. There just seems to be some correlation here. That when you look at, if we look at 2017, other than the 75 and older crowd, every age demographic, within females in the United States has seen an uptick in suicide. And the light green here, this is our 15 to 24-year-old daughters. And so we just need to be mindful that there is stuff going on, and we need to be aware of the mental health and the some of the vulnerability that our kids are experiencing and enduring right now, that we just need to make certain, as dads especially, we need to be making certain that our daughters know that we love them and will love them forever. They need to hear from you that they're beautiful, because they're looking for those words from somebody else online, I guarantee it. They need to know more than just that you think that they're beautiful. They need to know that you value them and other internal characteristics. Support them, build into them. I'm sure there's a lot of moms and wives and grandmas in this room that are like, yeah, I wish my dad would have had those conversations with me when I was growing up. Dads, we have a responsibility with our daughters, especially, to be building into them, to develop their character, to develop their confidence, that they are loved and cherished, and that will never change. And so we look at these things, and we have some pretty strong positions that protect young eyes. We make strong statements, and then we let you as parents decide what you're going to do with it. If you agree with us, that doesn't mean you're right. If you disagree with us, it doesn't mean you're wrong. All right, but what we have seen is that we believe that kids should wait until high school to get a smartphone. And we'll talk about some solutions and options, because are there any payphones in this building anymore? Or have they all been taken out? Because like for me growing up, I found my niche on the stage. I wasn't committed enough to get playing time on any sports field. I went undefeated my freshman year of high school in football, cheering from the bench. And that was about it. I had one 12-yard run, and that was incredible, but that was about it. And so we we realized that, okay, this was my niche, and so after play practice, or I was in the choirs, like sitting through choir concerts, I've done that, and I understand they're the best thing to be able to do to celebrate your kids and their achievements and their growing. But after rehearsals, well, how do you get picked up? Well, when we grew up, you would go to the payphone and you would call your parents. Well, again, I mentioned earlier, my dad was a minister. I'm the firstborn of 6 kids. It wasn't like just quarters lying all over the place. And so I would dial my parents' collect. And like, well, that cost more than the 25 cents. So like, no, not the way that we did it, because they would say, state your name. You know, they record your name. I would say, Doug, pick me up. And so then my parents would get a collect phone call from, Doug, pick me up. And they would decline it, hang up, and come get me from at school. And for those of you that wasted a bunch of quarters, I'm sorry. You know, you don't have the opportunity to implement such great technological wisdom. But we want to get a hold of our kids. We want them to be able to get a hold of us. So how do we do that? If we're not giving them smartphones in 3rd grade, then what's the solutions or the other options? So we're going to talk about some of those things this evening. We believe that kids' brains aren't ready for social media before age 15. We actually think that age is higher, but there's no parent that's going to wait 2 years after the COPA laws allow for it at 13 and going to convince their kids, yep, you need to keep waiting, this is going to harm your brain. Some of you are being successful in that. Others of you gave up a long time ago, and I don't blame you. It's draining. But mommy, daddy, all of my friends have it. Like, there's no way all of your friends have it. And then you go to some school event and you're like, my kids are probably right. It sure seems like all the kids have a device. And so we realize that, the brain develops from back to front, and the prefrontal cortex is kind of that last part of the brain to develop. And the prefrontal cortex is like the brakes of the brain. That should I do that? What are the consequences or ramifications if I do that? That's where the prefrontal cortex is. That's why our kids are idiots. And that's why you were an idiot when you were that age too. So don't look at them like, yeah, they sure are. Like, we all were. How many times your parents said, what were you thinking to you? You weren't, because your brain wasn't even fully developed. Yet we're giving our kids internet-connected devices and cameras and saying, okay, you're probably going to make all the right decisions with this. Here you go, have a good day. It's just not true. And so there's just things that we need to be mindful as we're talking to them. We said that delay is the way. Ignoring the pressure, ignoring the culture, ignoring the fear, delaying smartphone, delaying social media, and watch your kid actually accelerate. Developmentally, neurologically, all of these things. But we also realize if we're going to say no smartphones until high school and no social media until 15, it's like, okay, well, there's 3 of us that can still say that we're on track with that, and the rest of us, we've already given them devices. Now what? And so we recognize, so whether you've said no, slow, or go, all right, whether you've said no, slow, or go, we believe the ubiquity of technology demands that we equip our children with skills, with tools, with training, so that they're ready and confident for anything they might encounter online. The adolescent brain, again, because it's not fully developed. In fact, the prefrontal cortex, MRI technology shows that adolescence, which is kind of tied to the development of the prefrontal cortex, ends in the mid-20s now. So like 26 years old, some sociologists will say adolescence goes into like 30 years old. I'm like, I think that's ridiculous. But some of you have friends that have 30-year-old sons still living in their basement that are really good at Fortnite but haven't been on a date or kept a job in a year and a half. And they blame it on COVID, right? And so, it demands, our adolescent brain demands we have more empathy when our young people make digital mistakes. Their brain isn't ready for this. And many times we don't know how to equip them, and so they're ill-equipped to handle it, and they're going to fumble all over the place. We need some empathy with our kids. I hear parents say all the time, I'm so glad I didn't grow up with all of this. There's a lot of Saturday nights that I'm glad that there wasn't Instagram or Snapchat available in my hands, because I would have made some really stupid decisions. Yet on their 8th birthday, you give them an iPad. And so we have to be mindful of some of these things. We recognize that there's dangers there, but we're the parents. We can make those decisions and guide and direct our kids. And so the power of technology again demands that we treat all digital situations with care and caution. And we consider putting off certain technologies as long as possible. Some of you prepare your kids to ride a bike for the first time with more safety than when you gave them a smart device. They have a helmet, they have elbow pads, they have wrist guards, they have knee pads, they have all these things to make sure they're safe because you don't want them to get hurt. Or if you're going to give them a sharp object like a scalpel, there's going to be a whole lot of, okay, I'm going to show you how I do this, and that's all that's going to happen this time. And the next time, okay, I'll let you hold on to it, but the daddy's going to hold on to it with you, and you're going to learn how to do this. To the point where you've proven, okay, they can cut a straight line and not murder themselves and their siblings with this. Okay, now we're going to try maybe something. We're going to be so careful and cautious with these. In the physical world, but the digital world, I think sometimes we can carelessly not think through all the ramifications. So we have a lot more to talk about. I'm going to pause here. Any questions from what we either talked about, or maybe a question that you have that you just would like to ask? There's a couple more opportunities to ask questions throughout the presentation, then also at the end. I was telling the school leadership I like to be the second to last person to leave, only followed by the person locking the door behind us. So I will stay as long as I need to answer any questions, whether from the stage or privately, face-to-face after the presentation is done. Any questions up to this point? Yes, sir.
So I agree with everything you're saying, about delay and all that. But, to be the kind of dad that's empathetic and understanding, what are some of the ways that you get the message instead of just saying, no, I said no? I mean,
Absolutely.
What are some of the ways of doing that?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. I'm going to let you ask that question again at the end if I haven't answered it with a couple of our slides coming up. All right, is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thank you. Excellent, it's a great question, and a lot of parents have that question, so thank you so much for asking. Any other questions? Okay, maybe well, he just said he was going to get to that stuff later, so I had a question, but maybe it's on another slide, so I'm going to be quiet. All right, I get it. And so at Protect Young Eyes, what we believe is that a different approach is creating digital trust. Digital trust. If we were to look at this as kind of a framework here, as a continuum, a spectrum here, we see the hard work in the middle is what we're going to spend most of the rest of our time talking through. All right, these 5 C's: copy, meet, co-play, curiosity, conversation, and coaching. But some of us as parents, you can kind of see our parenting style on this continuum. Some of us are more of that digital trust evasion, like we're going to be passive, we're going to be silent, we really don't feel like we can speak up, we're not going to learn about it, we're going to be apathetic. Like, you know what, we had Playboys growing up, my kids are it's just all part of just growing up, it's fine, whatever. And then some of you on the other side, and you're like, I'm going to spy on all my kids, and spying is not, this is the differentiation between monitoring and spying. I think absolutely you should monitor your kids' devices. But tell them that you're doing it. When you don't tell them, that's spying. All right? When you have monitoring stuff on their device and they don't know about it, that's spying. When you talk, be open about it, say, hey, just to let you know that there's stuff on the internet that we just think that it's just better if you don't interact with. And so we put some things on your device, and it's from time to time, it's going to be inconvenient and annoying. I'm sorry for that. If it's bumping up against stuff that you need to be able to see for school or whatever, let me know. We can maybe change and adapt these things so that it works better for you. But I just want to let you know, Mom and Daddy, we love you so much. We want to protect you from everything that we can that's possible. And so we just put some stuff on your phone. I just want to be aware of that. And make that one of the requirements for them to have a device. If they can't agree to that, all right, well, you're not ready then. And we'll just wait a little bit. And just have, again, open conversation with them. And so the spying or the helicopter, you're always looking over their shoulder, or you're working from a position of fear and to control everything. And that just is annoying. I talk to kids, again, all over the country, and some of them say, I wish the parents should understand that we aren't always doing bad stuff on our devices. My parent always assumes if I'm on my device doing something, that I'm probably looking at something bad, or I'm doing something wrong, or I'm saying something that I shouldn't, and I just wish that they would realize that sometimes my phone actually helps me. Whether it's a calming video that I'm really anxious, or playing video games when the physical world is overwhelming, I can jump into a digital world, and while we don't want them to be dependent upon that, sometimes that's that outlet for your kids. Monitor that, see if it's healthy for them, and all those kinds of things. But just be aware that, again, that empathy piece, we want to be making certain that we aren't hammers looking for a nail. And I think my default is to go more that direction. I wasn't raised in a military family, but there's some things that because of study and the research I've done that I have to say, okay, Doug, be reasonable. You know all the facts and the stats and all that kind of stuff. Raise your kids right, be mindful, be all those things, but just make sure that you're not overwhelming, because I tend to go that direction. I like to be the fun dad, except for when there's people that are coming after my kid, then I just want to destroy all of them. And so a great article that kind of gets at this, it was written in the Atlantic, and it's called What Happened to American Childhood? Subtitled, Too Many Kids Show Worrying Signs of Fragility from a Very Young Age. Here's what we can do about it. And in this article, there's this quote. If we want to prepare our kids for difficult times, we should let them fail at things now and allow them to encounter obstacles and to talk candidly about worrisome topics. We're not going to be able to protect our kids from everything. They're going to skin their knees. They're going to go to porn. They're going to talk to someone that they don't know online. That's going to happen. How do we prepare them for that environment? And how do we create an environment of mutuality and conversation so that when that happens, we have a platform we can talk to them about, that we haven't burned that bridge? Because if we're not careful, again, this is speaking to me too, if we overreact on little things, there's no way our kids are going to come and talk to us when something actually really serious happens on their device. So we just have to be aware of the environment that we're creating with our kids. One of support and excitement and all of those things, we just need to be mindful of that. So again, this digital trust framework. So we start with Copy Me. And if Copy Me is asking us that question, would I want my kids to use their technology just like I do? Where I use it, how I use it, what I use it for. As parents, we are the primary influencer in the lives of our kids. And that's whether you are present or absent. Your presence is a major influence. If you either had a spouse die or a divorce and you're separated, the absence of a spouse or of a parent influences and has an impact on our kids. As parents, we have a unique opportunity, and studies show over and over and over again that mom and dad are the #1 influencer in the lives of children. Now, as they get older, that starts to migrate away from mom and dad into peers and culture and other things, but especially in elementary school, pre-elementary school, we are the primary influencers in our kids' lives. And so we need to kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, do I want my kids, because sometimes when we yell at our kids for stuff they learn from us. Have you ever, while your kid is talking to you, been on your device looking at something? And they're talking to you, maybe they come home from school and you're in the middle of reading an article or creating a shopping list or checking your stocks or whatever it is, and they come in and they start telling you about their day, and you're like, yep, and you don't look up, and you're constantly on your device, and then when you're telling them that they need to do their homework or their chores, and like, yep, and you're like, you take the device from them, you're like, wait a second, they got that one from me. And so just be thinking, am I modeling the kind of things I want to see replicated in my kids? Colin Karcher is a great friend of Protect Young Eyes, and he tragically and very suddenly passed away about 1.5 years ago. He was a great advocate for kids and their value. And he said this, showing your kids you love them is 2% effort and 98% just putting down your phone. Now, while you may disagree with the ratios, I think that the statement is still powerful enough to understand that sometimes it's just, I'm going to put my device down and show my kids the value that they have and listen to them without a distraction. And again, I'm guilty of this too. In fact, USA Today wrote this article, Communications Time Bomb, Parents' Smartphone Use Could Be the New Secondhand Smoke. Some of you may be smokers, maybe you grew up in the household of a smoker, and secondhand smoke was something that in the 70s and 80s we started becoming a little bit more aware of it, especially into the 90s, and it became so, okay, now if I'm a smoker, I'm going to go outside and do those things. And a lot of our restaurants and public spaces, you can't smoke indoors anymore, because we realize that the exhalation and the smoke that you're exhaling impacts the lungs of people around you. And it was just an interesting correlation of saying that parent smartphone use is now this generation's secondhand smoke. And in this article it says this: regular quality interactions with parents, talking, listening, singing, reading, and playing together, fuel children's language development and their acquisition of communication skills. And for children to get the brain food they need, parents need to be able to notice and respond to cues, smiles, eye contact, and later on, words, facial expressions, gestures, and emotions. With hours less of these interactions each day, a child's foundation for communication, social development is weakened, potentially impacting school readiness and creating a ripple effect throughout that child's life. Our kids are always watching us. They're always watching us. And interesting, if you were to go to YouTube, and I don't care if you search it right now, just turn your volume down. But search still face experiment on YouTube. And there's a couple of videos. This one here is just under 2 minutes long. There's some that are like 13, 14 minutes long. And this experiment is, in this particular video, is this mom and this little child are interacting, smiling. Baby's making sounds, mommy's making sounds. Baby's making facial expressions, mommy's making facial expressions. Back and forth. So that's just typical interaction that all of us feel like we need to have with babies. The silly sounding voices and all this stuff, right? But then what ends up happening then is mom then puts a cell phone up. And not only is it a physical barrier where the child can't see mom's face as well, but also if you've ever looked at yourself in the mirror when you're on your device, you're still faced. You're just swiping. And so we see a happy, contented baby interacting with mommy go to a dejected, upset, crying baby in just a matter of moments because they're not getting that responsive feedback that they desire. And so we just need to, again, be thinking of the neurological development, those kinds of things. When this copy me concept, we're trying to create digital trust. If we're going to have rules and instructions for our kids, no matter how old they are, we need to be modeling the kind of behavior we want to see showing up in our kids. Because if not, we're hypocrites, and we kind of lose some of that foundation to employ rules that we don't have to follow. Now, some of you may be on call, so like in our house, kids couldn't have cell phones in bedrooms or bathrooms. That was just a rule. No cell phones in bedrooms and bathrooms. Studies show that the top 5 most dangerous places for kids to be online are bedrooms, bathrooms, school buses, slumber parties, and grandparents' houses. And so, when you think of bedrooms as probably the place that your kid feels the safest in all the world, so they may participate in more risky behavior, especially with an internet-connected camera, their cell phone. Think of the bathroom, where you're most sexually exposed, and you add an internet-connected camera there. There's higher risk for behavior that, is illegal in every state in the United States. With high school students, we talk about this because in under 7th grade, we don't use the term pornography. We say bad pictures or unhealthy pictures. And we don't say online or sexual predators, we call them tricky people. And so we change our vocabulary depending on, so when I'm talking to your kindergartners tomorrow, I will let you know we will be talking about online predators and pornography, and those words will never be mentioned. We talk about if you're on and you see a scary picture or a picture that makes you feel uncomfortable, what do? We encourage them to put the device down and tell someone. Then we kind of rehearse, who are those people you tell? It happens at school, it's a teacher, it happens at home, your parents, it happens at a friend's house, their parents, it happens, maybe if you attend a church, you talk to one of maybe a Sunday school teacher or somebody, but you talk to a trusted adult and say, here, this is what happened. And so I just want to let you know that the concepts we're going to be introducing and talking that there are things on your children's devices, but just so you know that those terms aren't used before 7th grade. But when we talk to high school students and upper middle school, we absolutely want to let them know that if you are involved in any sort of sexting, then you have produced child pornography, you are in possession of child pornography, and distribution of child pornography. Depending on what state you're in, that's high misdemeanor to low felony. And in the state of Michigan, where I grew up, if you got the full weight of all of those and you had to serve them not all at the same time, it was 70 years in prison. Now, that's because the laws are outdated, and they're mostly written for adults who get that content and distribute it. And so the peer-to-peer kind of stuff, again, that's what we say, the laws are just outdated. They don't know how to handle that kind of stuff. Because there wasn't even really all of that going on. So we believe, and we see this, whether it's the American Academy of Pediatrics, the World Health Organization, that almost no sedentary screen time is between ages 0 to 2. Less is almost always best. And then look at number 3, how adults use tech impacts how they use tech. Again, it shows up in study after study after study. And so we call this the toxic trio. When we combine darkness, bedroom, and boredom, it's a high-risk scenario. Whether you're 4, 14, or 40, it doesn't matter. If you're late at night, everybody's asleep, you're laying in your bed, it's dark, and you're bored, maybe you had a long day, you just want to just veg out. Our kids are the same way. So that's the first C, so that's copy me. So co-play, shoulder-to-shoulder activities open up bridges of conversation and connection with our children. Understanding how your kids use technology by doing technology with them is a wonderful window into their heart. And this kind of gets a little bit to the question that you were asking. We need to make certain that not all of our conversations are consequence-based and punishment-based. We'll get a little bit more into this, into the curiosity part of it, but we want to be thinking, okay, what ways can we say yes? What things can we participate in and have this be a we thing, not just a me thing when it comes to our use of technology? If that means that you need to lose 100,000 times in a row in Super Smash Bros., then you're going to lose 100,000 times in a row in Super Smash Bros. That's okay. But your kids need to see you enjoying these kinds of things and doing this with them so that not all of our conversations are consequence-based. This is Chris, our founder and CEO, you saw him in the testimony video, sitting at home with one of his boys. Again, they're not on he's on his Switch and Chris is on his laptop, but again, it's like we're going to do this together, whether we're playing a game together or we're on technology together. This isn't something that should always isolate us. And technology absolutely trends that direction. It is an isolating thing. Now, it may bring people together around the world, but it doesn't bring people together in the same room. And so again, there's great strengths. We're a pro-tech company. We're not going to say you need to throw all technology out and burn it. Although there's times I wish that we could. Parents would be really upset if our assemblies ended with a huge fire in the middle of the school and all of your money that just got burned up. There's probably a better way to go about that. But so we know that it's here. The ubiquity of technology, as I already said, demands that we equip our kids. It's here. It's not going anywhere. So how do we prepare our kids and equip them to be able to navigate with wisdom in these worlds? Maybe you have a gaming kid. Any of you have kids that they just love with video games on a console or games on a device? How many of you have gaming kids? Fortnite, Roblox, whatever it is, they're just all over the place, right? And so when we think through this, or Minecraft, some kids are all into Minecraft, we need to realize that these games are created to, just as Sean Parker said in his testimony, to consume as much time as possible. There's dopamine hits, there's reward systems. In fact, it's the euphoria that is a part of the slot machine. If you study the psychology of slot machines, there's always that thought of, okay, maybe the next one, maybe the next one. And there's that and then if you win a little bit, it's like, okay, cool, I won. So that affirms that what I'm doing is good, so I'm going to do more and more and more. That potentiality, and they've taken that impact on the brain and they put it into our video games. And so that's why you have to play at a certain amount to be able to earn certain skins or certain things, this, that, and the other thing, because they're wanting to tap into that reward center of the brain at the dopamine hit. And so remember, this isn't more your kid's brain against the game than it is you against your kid. Okay? Follow the rating. Beware, again, we said, anything that has a chat feature is going to have predatory activity. So just be aware of that. If your kids are going to have games that allow for chatting, regularly ask the question, hey, while you're playing Minecraft, while you're playing Roblox, has anybody recently talked to you that you didn't know? And if the answer is yes, the response isn't take the device, break it, and throw it away. It's, okay, well, how did you handle that? Anything that I should know about? What were they asking? What things were they want to know? I want you to know if that happens again, I'd like for you to come and talk to me about it. So we just make certain that it's somebody who's safe. Because if you don't know them off the internet, you shouldn't be talking to them on the internet. And so that's kind of that curiosity and conversation played out. We'll get to that. Making a plan and then knowing your kid. Any questions up to this point? Did I hit enough of what you were kind of looking at? Did you have a follow-up question a little bit more from what you previously asked?
No, you definitely touched on it, but
Okay.
you know, more is always better.
Yeah.
I've got another question, nothing about
Yeah.
any of this. I heard you say that you're going to talk to some kindergarten kids or
I am.
school. Are you going to meet with other elementary age?
I am talking through all K through 12 in this district tomorrow.
Awesome.
K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. Those are the age demographics and breakdowns.
That's
And
really
each
good.
of them are different presentations from each other, and all of them are different from tonight. All right, just some parents think, I don't want you talking to my kids like this. Like, no, this is a parent presentation. If there's kids in the room, that's totally fine. But just, you know, this is one that's written for you guys, all right? The ones with the kids have fun videos in it. There's times of laughing, and there's interaction, and there's crowd participation, and shouting, you know, I mean, I have a ton of fun spending time with your kids and talking through these kinds of things. And I want to know, middle school and high school, the main thrust of those presentations is affirming their value. In fact, it's titled, You Matter. And I wear a t-shirt that says, You Matter, on my chest, so that throughout the entire presentation, if they don't want to look me in the face, if they're going to look at my chest, they're going to be reminded that they matter. Because I want them to know that their value and their identity are not connected to followers, likes, and comments on their social media, but it's innate in them. And as a confessing Christian, I find my identity and value rooted in the Creator. But I want to let you know that with students, especially in a public school, Pastor Doug stays inside, and public school graduate Doug is on the stage talking to your kids. But it's important for you to know that that's one of those things that I think that there's something within all of us that longs for connection and longs to be valued. And what we end up doing is looking for a lot of lesser things to fill that void and that gap. Again, as a Christian, I believe that's fulfilled in Christ, but there's still a longing in our kids, and there are ways that we as parents can work to helping support them and to build into them, to affirm them in ways so they don't have to go to the outside world to find that affirmation. That can be found from mom and dad and grandpa, aunts and uncles, those kinds of things, siblings. So, copy me, co-play, curiosity. So now all of a sudden you're playing a game, and maybe it's, okay, they're showing you how to play one of their favorite games on their phone. And so you're asking questions. Again, like, hey, when you're playing, I see there's a chat. Has anybody ever tried talking to you about this? And they try, what kind of questions are they asking? How did you respond? Are there any games or things or apps that you have on your device that you think I would really like? And let this be, have you ever come across something that was maybe scary or inappropriate or made you feel uncomfortable? What did you do? Again, I want to let you know that when that happens, I want you to come and talk to me. I'm going to do my best to be understanding and to try to help and talk you through that. But your kids need to know, and there will be a slide on this later, your kids need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can always land softly with you. That you are their advocate. If you were to ask Cheyenne and Ryan, my older two kids, what's your dad's role in your life? When they were in my home, they don't live in my home anymore. They're big kids and moved out. But they would say to provide, to prepare, to protect. Just boom, they would just know. Dad, to provide what we need, to prepare us for life, and to protect us from harm. And so, in my curiosity, questioning, it's like, remember, as a dad, it's my responsibility to provide what you need to prepare you for life, protect you from harm, and some of that plays itself out in technology. So I'm going to ask these questions from time to time. Side note, one of the things that I would say we really need to consider implementing in our homes, I call it the 7-day rule. And it goes like this. You set up your children's devices in such a way that they cannot download any apps from the app stores. And if they want to download an app, the rule is you download it on your device and you mess around with it for 7 days, and then make the determination if they can download it on their device. And when you do this, I would highly recommend that you make an account that matches their demographic. So if it's a game that your 8-year-old son is going to play, create an account as an 8-year-old boy. If it's something your 15-year-old daughter is going to play, create an account as a 15-year-old girl. And see how the AI in the app, and especially with social media, how it navigates but the reason I say 7 days is because if you were just to look at it quickly, like, oh, that looks harmless enough. But then as you interact in the app, it's going to learn some of your patterns, and then it's going to start feeding you content. And some of it's going to be beyond the scope of what you think is going to be appropriate for your child. And so then you have to make the decision. Are we going to prepare them for this and they're ready to handle this? Because they have to learn how to handle this before they leave my house. Because if you protect them from everything and then you send them off to college, oh my goodness, they're going to they're not going to know how to say no to anything because they never had to because you made the decision for them all their life. And so we have to, the rules for Shine and Ryan were different when they were 8. Well, 9 of them were in my house when they were 8, so they're absolutely different because they weren't even in my house. But when they were 9 and then 13 and then 16 and then 18, the rules changed because they're getting ready to go on their own. And I got to prepare them for them and trust them with that. But again, curiosity, asking these questions. If our tech convocations are all consequence and negativity, again, when something terrible happens, they're never going to come and talk to us. So we need to have that pattern of having these asking the questions without assuming we already know the answer before they answer. Ask the question and let it be and see what happens. Because again, if we're looking at the scale of our conversations when it comes to technology, we need to make certain that we're mindful of how this goes. And again, do we know what all of these apps are? I'm not going to make an assumption. Do we know what this is? Nice. Do we know what this is? Do we know what this is? All right, nice work. And I actually heard adult-sounding voices, so that was good. It wasn't just the kids answering. That was good. All right? We realize it's hard being a parent, but it's crazy hard being a kid. If you remember growing up, maybe you had drama at school, and home was a safe place. And so you got to go home from school, and you got to have a break. Or maybe your drama was at home, and it wasn't at school. When you went to school, you got a break. It never leaves our kids. They don't get a break. In fact, when we talk to some students and they decide on their own, I'm going to take a media fast. I'm going to put my phone away. I'm not going to mess with it for a week. At the end of that week, when I talk to some of these kids, like, this was one of the best weeks I've had in a long time. Because there wasn't the drama and the weight of wanting to make sure I know everything that's going on and all of this stuff. I could just breathe. And what ends up happening as we're having these, asking questions and having conversations with our kids, I want you to realize that if you have monitoring or filtering devices, services on your devices, and you find that your child has been, searching out or viewing pornography, I want you to know that they're kind of not all going at it for the same reasons. In fact, we wrote an entire blog post. Does everybody know what these things are? A QR code. Do you know what you do with QR codes? You get your phone out with the camera app and you scan it, and then it says, hey, this looks like you're trying to open up a link. And then you tap on it and it opens up on your phone. All right? So if you see any QR codes in the presentation, again, I have no problem looking out to a room with people with cell phones up, taking pictures of those kinds of things. Okay, I know it's in general society, it's like, oh, it's kind of, when someone's talking to you, you don't look at your phone, it's rude and disrespectful. No, this is totally okay. And I'm going to even assume the best you're actually taking. So if you want to time it right and you want to watch Sports Center, lift up your phone when there's a QR code and I won't know the difference. All right? That's okay. So again, why kids look at pornography? In fact, we even see differences between boys and girls going to pornography for different reasons. And uniquely, I see it tied back to identity and value. Again, they're seeking this. I see many times young men going to porn because they're concerned about their identity. All the other guys are looking at it. I don't want to be the person who's not, and so I got to make certain that I'm conversant in this so that I can keep up with all the dudes, the locker room talk, all the other that kind of stuff. And so their identity is wrapped up in this. And I see many times, again, this isn't always so cut and clean I see a lot of times young ladies going to pornography because they want to be valued and they want to have a relationship and a boyfriend, and the assumption is all the boys are looking at it. If I'm going to get and keep a boyfriend, I need to know how to perform, because they're going to have expectations, because they're looking at this and they're going to be thinking that this is what a healthy sexual relationship is. So I need to watch it because I want to feel loved and valued. So I'm seeing our sons and daughters coming to the same concept for totally different reasons, but because of the addictive nature. Again, the brain addicted to porn and the brain addicted to crack cocaine scan the exact same on an MRI scan. Addiction is an addiction is an addiction. And so they maybe come to it for different reasons, but then they get trapped in it. And then that sadly becomes their sex ed course. Because as parents, we feel really uncomfortable talking to our kids about those kinds of things. And so now the assumption is that most sex is actually physically abusive to women. That I have to hit or do all these different kinds of things, or treat a woman as for my pleasure, and everything is done when I'm done. It has nothing to do with her. That's why our sons are learning this. Man, that's so messed up. A healthy sexual relationship is about giving, loving, not getting and receiving. Yet, that lesson is not found anywhere on the internet if pornography is the teacher. In fact, I wrote an entire blog post, 5 ways that pornography harms children. And this is one of those weird things to say, but it's true. If you go to our website and search porn, it's such a weird thing to say, but it's true. You will find all the blog posts that we've written on the topic, including this one and others. And so make sure you're on the search bar on our site, not on Google, when you search this, all right? Just letting you know. And if you're not quite certain, talk to somebody else and say, am I doing this right? Before hitting enter on the search bar, all right? So, again, we realize there's a lot of things that are in play here. Again, I said that we had a slide for this earlier, and here it is. Here's the big question. Do your kids know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can always land softly with you? And so a takeaway from tonight's presentation might be, I need to start off with an apology to my kids. Say, I gotta let you know, I'm sorry. There's some things that I have just overreacted on, some things that I've done that I want you to know that it comes from a position of wanting to provide, prepare, protect. But whenever I think of something that could possibly harm my child, it just gets at me because I love you so much. And I'm sorry. There's some things will you forgive me? And can we agree to try to work better here on out? Can you imagine what those kinds of conversations would do in the relationship with you and your kids? The trust that would begin to build. And any good relationship is built on trust. And if you can start modeling that with your kids, just think of the ramifications that can have. And the joys and the celebrations and the heartache that's going to come with this. But at least you know that we're doing this together with the same goal, walking shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand with our kids. So copy me, co-play, curiosity moves into conversation. So when you ask the question, has anybody that you didn't know tried talking to while you're playing the game, and the answer is yes, then the next question is, okay, how did you handle that? And then after you talk to that, they say, okay, I will let you know this is how I need for us to handle this moving forward. And lay the ground rules. You're the parents. You still get to make the rules here and to enforce them. But we just need to let that move into conversation. You talk to your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews about all the awkward things that no one talked to you about when you were a kid. If you don't talk to them, then Dr. YouTube, Dr. TikTok, and Dr. Google will, and their offices are open 24/7. And your kids are going to come about this differently. Some of you could go through your entire child rearing with one of your kids and never talk about sex with them because your child is never going to come to you and ask the question. Some of you, dinner table conversations end up going that direction because you have a kid that if it's in their head, it's out their mouth. Cheyenne was one of those kids, my daughter. She still calls me and asks me stuff out of the blue. She'll be at Lowe's and saying, hey, what's it? I'm like, I understand that my work schedule is different than your husband's, but you're married to Quell now. Let him help make some of these decisions. I know I love you come to Dad to ask all of these things, from cooking to repairs to whatever it is. She'll just FaceTime me out of the blue. And that started early on. She was 12 when she joined our family, but she's maybe 13 or 14, and she came to me when I was working on my laptop in our living room, and I was sat on the couch. She came up to me, she's like, Daddy? And I was like, yeah, sweetheart. She's like, what's erectile dysfunction? Yep. And so I said, okay, sweetheart. I actually told her, she came down to visit this last week, and I actually told her, I said, I tell this story in every parent presentation that I go to. And she kind of thought that was a little funny, a little embarrassing, but she's 24 and it doesn't matter. But I asked, I was like, what led to that question? Because my assumption was that she saw a Cialis or a Viagra commercial somewhere, because they're everywhere. Again, I was a pastor for 15 years, and I was a youth pastor for 12. So as the kids in the youth group got older, I did a lot of the premarital counseling for the kids and officiated their weddings. And it was one of these times when I was doing premarital counseling, I would have the couple come to our house, we'd just make it really comfortable to talk about stuff. Well, my premarital counseling book was out. And she went to the sex chapter, because all kids are going to eventually get to that chapter if they're curious. And that's where she read the words erectile dysfunction, and she didn't know what that was. I learned that last week. That's where this question came from. But I said, okay, sweetheart, do you know what dysfunction means? Start with the easier word of the two. And she's like, kind of. I said, yeah, so something doesn't function, it doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. Like, sweetheart, do you know what an erection is? And she looked at me like, I do, but there's no way that I'm gonna guess, because if I'm wrong, this is gonna be really awkward. And so she's like, I don't know, I know. It's like, okay, well, when a man's penis, she goes, hold on a second. And she ran out of the room. I was like, okay, way to go, Dad. You won that one. 20, 30 seconds, she comes back in, sits on the couch, has a teddy bear in her hands, puts the teddy bear on her lap, plugs the teddy bear's ears, and says, okay, go ahead. And we kept talking about it. And it was just one of those really innocent, beautiful conversations, and I just love that I'm one of the top 3 resources that Cheyenne goes to when she has a question about literally anything. And I love that. And I worked hard to be in that role. Ryan, I am finally cracking into that top 5, and he's going to be 21 years old next month. He knew that I would answer any question, but he just didn't come to Dad with a lot of stuff. I had to initiate those conversations. But he's now turning the page and realizing, you know what? And I love that it's at 20. I love that he realized that. He's like, my dad might know a couple of things. He's dated a girl before, and he's just starting a new relationship with a girlfriend and wants to do it right this time. And he's advancing in his job. He's like, my dad's had a job before, and he's answering. And so all of a sudden, it's like having these, you work so hard to finally earn the trust of your kids, and it's so beautiful. If you're in the stage where your kids think that you're idiots still, I've been there. And the other side is so worth it. Keep working hard now. Keep that trust going. And again, your idiocy is going to be received as wisdom in just a few more years. So hold on, you're going to make it. But again, have these conversations. But obviously, what we say, when we say it, how we say it, where we say it is critical. Cheyenne and Ryan, when they joined their family, they went to a charter school in the area, and it would have been, even though charter school wouldn't have been in district, but it would have been even out of district. It wasn't in the area that we lived. And so I had to drive them 20, 25 minutes to school every morning and then pick them up. But as they reached, Cheyenne finished 8th grade while Ryan was finishing 5th grade. They went to our middle school and freshman center in our district, because our 3 middle schools were 6th to 8th grade, and there's a freshman center and then a 10th through 12th building. And in our public school, that's where they ended up going. But when they were jumping in, say, okay, all these elementary schools are going into these middle schools, so a bunch of people will be learning new people. So Ryan was kind of in that midst of people trying to find new friends. 6th grade, you're trying to figure out life. Your voice is starting to do really weird things. Hair is starting to show up on weird places for some of these guys, and everything is awkward. Well, trying to connect with new friends, he bumped into a couple of buddies who told him to search some things on the internet. Well, my monitoring and filtering software received that and alerted me, and so we had a conversation. But the approach was asking questions like, hey man, some stuff showed up on, I use Covenant Eyes, showed up on the Covenant Eyes report, and it wasn't me, wasn't mom, wasn't shy. And you could just see in his eyes just the heartbreak and then the tears as we talked through, saying, yeah, some of my buddies told me to search something, I didn't know what it was. And he was just devastated. He didn't want to see that. He wanted connection and identity. And so we had this conversation, but man, if I would have picking him up after band practice would have said, hey dude, what's going on? I said, there's porn on our family computer. I would have totally blown all trust with my kid and never been able to have that conversation ever again. And so again, you need to have these conversations, but again, you need to be wise about when you're going to have it. And again, let them know that they can always land softly with you. So, asking the question, as you think through your parenting, what's about the right age to start talking to your kids about porn? You can go ahead, just out loud, just answer. At 10, okay. Was that a porn talk or a broader sex talk that porn was a part of? Yep. Anybody else? If this means that you haven't had the talk yet, more homework for this week, or at least the next couple of weeks. Again, I've already mentioned to you that I'm going to be talking to all of your students tomorrow about the way that we talk with the younger kids is, and there's resources that are out there. In fact, we wrote a blog post on how to talk to your 5-year-old about porn. Whatever number was in your head, you said 10, usually between 8 and 11 is usually what most parents and grandparents will say, that kind of age, 3rd to 6th grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, somewhere in there. Whatever that number was, subtract 2 years and start the conversation then. Average age of first exposure to porn right now is 8. 3rd grade. And that average increased during COVID. So, we challenge you to have 10 conversations about pornography before your kid is 10 years old. 10 before 10. And again, this ranges, you don't have to use the term. You can talk about, hey, if you ever see a picture of somebody that shows their body parts that are covered by your swimsuit, if anybody ever asks to see a picture of you and wants to see the parts of you that are covered by your swimsuit, you can have age-appropriate conversations without having to go full into the depths of what this is. And so being creative. In fact, one of the things that when we talk to students, again, if I say, if you see anything on a tablet or device that makes you feel uncomfortable or is inappropriate or scary or is a bad picture, to put it down and tell someone. And I say it's a lot of fun with the younger kids. I'll have this side of the room say, put it down, and this side of the room say, tell someone. And when I point at them, they say, we start with a whisper. And we get to a shout. The kids always ask, can we do that again at the end of a presentation? And they're like, all right, let's do it. So I want to burn into their heads, put it down and tell someone. But there's great resources that are available. There's good pictures, bad pictures, and good pictures, bad pictures junior. We got the junior version one for JD when he was 3 or 4 years old. And we do a lot of reading with our kids at night and whenever they ask. And in the first week that we had this book, JD asked to read it like a dozen times at least. And we did. And in that book, specifically, in the junior version one specifically, talks about who ever could, or what's the scenario, and all those things about talking about the parts of our body that are covered by our swimsuits. You can have an honest conversation with your 3-year-old, 4-year-old about that. The junior version is kind of like that 3 to 6 years old, and the non-junior version is kind of that 6 to 8, 9 years old. Any older than that, they're going to feel like you're just reading a kid's book to them. But I think they're great, great, great resources out there. And so, excellent. So then, tricky people. Does your nice son or daughter know how to walk away from a nice predator? Because stranger danger is so different now. It used to be, okay, there's a van with no windows at the park, and there's somebody giving away puppies and ice cream. You're going to call the non-emergency phone number for the local police and say, hey, can you just send a squad car by such and such park? And just to check, there's just something just feels sketchy about this, right? And so we used to point out predators by what they looked like. We can't do that anymore. Right, talk to your middle schoolers. I will mention, especially to the young ladies, I want them to know that they are loved and they're valued, and they're beautiful, and that they have so much to offer the world just because of who they are. But COPA, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, requires you to be at least 13 years old to have social media, and that's Instagram, Snapchat. Okay? And elementary schools and middle schools are filled with kids that have Instagram and Snapchat. How do you get it? By lying about your age to get what you want. It's like the fake ID of our generation, right? Except instead of getting cigarettes or porn or beer, they get Instagram. That's way less exciting. But that's how that goes. And so, but what I'll tell them is the same thing that as a 12-year-old girl, and maybe you create your Instagram account and you say you're 15. The same features in Instagram that allows a 12-year-old girl to pretend to be a 15-year-old girl is what allows me as a 40-year-old man to pretend to be a 15-year-old girl. Again, if our kids, if their identity and values attached to how many likes and comments and followers they have, they're not going to really filter and pay attention to when somebody wants to follow them and sends a follow request to them, and they're just going to approve everything because they're more valuable that way, or their identity is higher that way. And so they all of a sudden start letting anybody follow them, and then I'm a trusted person. But I grew up with 4 sisters. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree on middle school, high school, family ministry kinds of stuff. I can talk a 15-year-old girl all day long. I would never do that because that's wrong. But not everybody has those same convictions. And there are people out there looking to get access to your kids, especially the numbers prove your daughters. In fact, many times the assumption is that it is par for the course that if you're going to be a female with social media, the assumption is you are going to have pictures sent to you without your request. And that's not pictures of, Jesus healing the blind man. All right, these are pictures of male genitalia sent, unsolicited. And Instagram doesn't have features that prohibit that 100%. Even if you have a private account, many can still DM through private messaging. And so we just need to be mindful that this is the world that our kids are in. And so we need to, and then again, think of the nice predator side of it. Think of the training you've given to your kid already. Say, you're at the grocery store and somebody you haven't seen in 20 years is at the store and you're with your kid. And that person comes up and they're so excited to see you and you know them, you give them a hug, you're like, oh, it's so good to see you. And then your friend asks your child their name. To your child, this person is a stranger. They have no idea who this is. And they just ask your child their name. And your child's kind of looking like, what do you say in that situation? If your kid delays you or doesn't want to, what are you going to say? Most of us say, sweetheart, when somebody asks you a question, it's rude not to answer thinking, this is a safe person, I have screened them, I have given permission. That's all that we are thinking of. Your kid is hearing, okay, it's rude not to answer people's questions. They're playing Minecraft, they're on TikTok, they're doing whatever, and something they don't know is asking them questions, and then going through their head, especially JD is the rule follower. Silas is the reason we have the rules, all right? And we have kids on both sides of that whole continuum. JD would be the kid, okay, it's rude not to answer people's questions, and he would absolutely answer their questions. Unless I have conversations with him saying, if you don't know them off the internet, you don't talk to them on the internet. If someone you don't know is trying to talk to you, you put the device down and you come and you talk to me. And you let daddy talk to them. And so we have to be, I hate that parenting has to have all of these nuances to it now, but it just has to be. There's so many variations in environments and communication that our kids have. So again, we need to give them permission or otherwise they won't. Snapchat is okay, so if you have strong feelings about, anybody have really strong feelings about Snapchat? Anybody have those same strong feelings about Instagram? Did you know that Instagram is by far worse than Snapchat when it comes to predatory activity? Far worse. It's not even close. Usually Instagram, because it's that more safer environment, is the trailhead, and Snapchat is the destination. Let's be friends on Instagram, and then I want to let you come and follow me on Snapchat. But Instagram 100%, especially because of like hashtags. Again, hashtags just act as a filing system for content. Just think of the Dewey Decimal System and all the different things you learned about going to the library when we were kids. And think of Snapchat of hashtags that way. You put hashtags, hashtag 3-year-old. You take a picture Silas just turned 4, so I said hashtag 4th birthday. Now all of a sudden, if that's on Instagram, if I have somebody who wants to see, even if it's appropriate pictures of kids, if I want to see pictures of kids, I can search hashtag 4th birthday, and now a picture of my son Silas will come up in their stream, in their search results. Then what ends up happening, and on totally appropriate pictures of children, in the comment sections, they'll be dropping Dropbox and Google Drive links of folders that are filled with not appropriate content of children. Or, hey, I have this, looking to trade for, anybody have? This is all in the comment sections. And so again, we just have to be mindful of these things. And in Snapchat specifically, we see, and other platforms as well, but Snapchat has a lot more of this. It's called sad fishing. What this is online predators, tricky people, that are looking for sad, depressed, anxious kids based upon their public profile, finding them, trying to befriend them and earn their trust, and then leveraging that trust to get what it is they actually wanted. And so they'll earn the trust, and all of a sudden your son or daughter thinks that they have finally found their best friend that understands them more than anything, that agrees with everything they say and disagrees with everything that they disagree with. Their friends are their friends. My enemies are their enemies. And they just get me, Mom. They get me. All they're doing is trying to build that trust and then saying, you know what, we're not going to be friends anymore. No, we need to still be friends. And then here's the hook is set. Give me your parents' credit card information or we can't be friends. Send me pictures or we're not going to be friends anymore. They send it, and then especially if it's the picture side of it, becomes, if you don't send me anymore, I'm going to take what you already sent me, put it on the internet and tag you, and all of your friends and family are going to know that you took these pictures and sent them to me. If you don't send me more. So again, this is the dark side of social media. Is there a light side? Absolutely. Do I use social media for business and positive purposes? Absolutely. I have thousands of friends on all social media platforms just because I'm a social person. If I've ever met you, we're best friends for life. That's just kind of how it goes for me. Everybody's my friend. And it can be used for great good, but we just need to be aware of ways that kind of the underside of these things. And that's why it's so critical that before you allow your child to have the app, that you have it on your own device and you know how it works. We can't let ignorance, again, that avoidance side of the digital trust framework, we can't let ignorance be a reason why I don't know what's on there, I don't have time. If your kid is asking to download an app, before you say yes, search Protect Young Eyes and look through our app reviews. See if we've already written a full review on it. If we haven't, message us, say, hey, my kids, it seems like a bunch of their friends are downloading this app. Is it just our kind of collection of friends? Or is this something that's spreading, in a bunch of other pockets around the country? And if it is, then we have an on-site researcher that follows all the trends and looks at the downloads every week to see which ones are rising up and trending. And then if there's something new, then we write an app review. So most of the time we've written stuff on, but we still miss things. And so if you find that we don't have a review on it, write to us and we'll download it, mess around with it, figure it out, and send you a response. You do your homework as well, but we can, there's things that we may, because we're in it all the time, that we may have insight in. Again, the tricky people side of things, the new stranger danger of the digital age. We can't judge predators by what they look like. We act actually more by what they talk like. Again, if there is someone that we don't know, and for some reason they're the nicest person on the internet, that's a tricky person. So, again, asking this big question, does your child know beyond any doubt that he or she can always land softly with you? Last C, coaching. Not just parental controls, but caring controls. They'll always know more. We talked about this already. They'll always find ways to beat us, but we invite them into the process, giving them agency. We watch them shine. In fact, any rule that they help us create is a rule that they're more bound to obey. Invite them into the process. If you're like, you know what, I need to set up on our wireless router, we need to set up filtering and some controls on this. You have absolutely no idea how to do that. Well, grandparents, take your grandkid out for ice cream and say, hey, afterwards I want you to show me how to do this. And also in the process, I want you to show me how to change the password, because as soon as you're done, I'm changing the password so you can't come in and undo all the stuff you just did. Parents do the same thing. Invite them into the process. Say, hey, again, this is be open about this. Don't try to figure it out yourself so you can spy on your kids. Say, hey, we're just going to put some things on there to protect you. Over 25% of the video content on the unfiltered, over 25% of the video content on the unfiltered internet is pornographic. And so if you have an unfiltered internet, that's like you have 4 magazines on your coffee table, one of them's a Playboy, and you hope your kid doesn't open that one every day. So at least get some filtering. If you don't know how to do that, look at our website, see how to do that, invite your kid in to help you with those kinds of things. Hey, we're doing this because we want to protect you. We want to protect us. There's things that I don't need to be seeing that. And so invite them in and coach them. Again, any coaches in the room, whether sports or any other kind of thing, any coaches in the room? Okay, how many times do you go on the court and play during the game? Never. Because you're the coach.
It's been a minute.
So when we think of coaching, think of it that same way. We're not the ones playing the game. We're not the ones that are in this. Our kids are. But a good coach prepares their players or their whatever it is they're coaching them in to handle every situation. So learn how to read a defense. And for some of us, especially as dads, man, I don't know if I can do all of that. If you can describe why Phil Jackson's triangle offense was so effective in the 90s and early 2000s, you can figure out some of these other different things, all right? Let's just be honest about this. You can coach your kids to do well online if you can break down a cover 2 defenses, why this going to the flats is going to help you. And we understand strategy and coaching. Let's put some of our efforts into learning things that can have a benefit also, a broader benefit, because knowing sports is great, but having a broader benefit to our kids, and take the time to learn that, and use resources like Protect Young Eyes and others to kind of help navigate those things. And so, again, we mentioned this earlier, this technology, when we're talking about video games, technology is not a me versus you, this is a me with you, the me for you conversation. We're doing this on your behalf, we're doing this together, we're all in this together. One of the things that we did in our household, and we had a number of people live with us throughout the years, our house was kind of, it was like mi casa, su casa. If a kid needed, we had one kid in our church that dad took an overseas job, and it was his senior year, and so he moved in with us his senior year. And dad and mom and all of his siblings went to Japan, and he lived with us for a year. I made him sign we call it a digital code of conduct, a digital playbook. This is kind of that a third-party document where you lay down what your rules are going to be in the household. Where can smart devices go? How long can you use them? Up until what time? What are some of the consequences? All these kinds of things. And so again, if you scan the QR code, it will bring you to a sample one that we've created. There's a lot of blanks in it for you to fill out and to make it your own. And then if you find that it's kind of outdated, then just make a new one. Again, the rules of your child when they're 15 should not be the same rules when they were 11. And they shouldn't be the same when they're 18 than when they're 15. There's going to be a progression here to write amendments. This is a resource for you to use so that when there's the heated conversation, I'll use that term because again, we're going to make sure they land softly with us, right? When they're in the midst of it, like, Mom, you never, like, sweetheart, we all signed this and agreed to this. Now, if you're finding that some of the rules are no longer appropriate, change them. But at least have something so you can at least all agree together. This is how it's going to be, and we'll amend it and adapt it as necessary. But talk about device ownership, how much time, where they can go, rewards, consequences, those kinds of things. It's time to give your router some love. Again, the router is the thing that the internet comes through to get to your devices. All right. You have some of you have a modem and router all in one. Some of you have the modem is what's connected to the wall, and then you have from that thing to another thing that has flashing lights on it. That's your router. It usually has antenna on it and like rabbit ears all over. Remember the good old rabbit ears on your television? The ones today maybe have 2, 6 rabbit ears on them. It all depends, but that's your router. All right? But set those things up. And again, we have step-by-step guides on how to go ahead and do that. And if you have if your internet provider, whether it's AT&T or Comcast or whatever, if they provide you with one, and some of them you can't adjust them as well as others, we even have ways that you can help do some of those things as well on our router review on our website. If you don't love your router, we love Griffin routers. Full disclosure, we are an affiliate of Griffin, but that's because they're the best, and we love telling people about them. So if you buy a Griffin router through us, you get a discount, and we get a little bit of a kickback on it. And if somebody makes a better router than Griffin, then we stop talking about Griffin and we talk about that router. Because again, we want to be third party and review stuff, and we're constantly looking at things as they're coming out. And they have 3 different options. The Tower, the Guardian, and then the AX. The AX is this one here, and it's their newest one, and it has I'll say mesh, and I'm going to stop getting technical. Okay, so if you understand what mesh means, then you know what's involved here with the AX. Again, this is the Tower, and this is the Guardian. And the Guardian, if you have like a house under 2,000 square feet, this one will cover it really well. If you have a larger house, or maybe with 2 stories and it's a little bit of a stretch, the Tower stretches farther. You can network them together. Again, so there's an app for it, and there's within the router itself monitoring, filtering controls. You can have that device specifically. You don't have to get other software to handle some of these things. Again, so just what they are, what they do, what they're about, we're all about, and we love them. Here's where we can talk a little bit about, I've gone long, I gotta stop. All right, here's where devices. Here's your solution. Instead of giving them when you upgrade to a new iPhone and you give your kid your old one, instead of that, give them a Gab phone or smartwatch. All right? Please read about them. This is a company that was started by a dad that just hated that he didn't have a lot of options when he gave his kids devices. It's a non-internet, non-social media smartphone. It has GPS, has an FM radio. There's a bunch of things on here that allow you to kind of have some of those protections and monitoring that you want with your kids, have access to them without giving them everything. If your kids have social media, we highly recommend Bark. Again, all of these things, these QR codes and things are listed on the back of the last page of your packet that you received. We put all those QR codes there again in case you forgot to get and scan or didn't come through. But ultimately, just find a software that works, whether it's Covenant Eyes or Gab Wireless, or this right here is Screen Time. These are the parental controls on an Apple device, or Bark, or this is, anybody know what this is? It's called Family Link, and this is the parental controls on an Android device. All right? And if you want to know how to set those things up, again, go to our website. We show with screenshots and all that kind of stuff. But do something. Anything is going to be better than some of where you are right now. Maybe some of you have all this nailed down. Awesome. Others are like, we know we need to, we just don't know how to do it. That's why we're here. We want to help you with that, all right? So again, there's digital copy, me, co-play, curiosity, conversation, and coaching. This is where we want to put our efforts. I'll do questions at the end of this, how to keep flexing. If your kid has an app, you want to read about it, go to protectyourguys.com/apps. You can read all about those. Our digital, the PYE download, that's our monthly newsletter. The Protect app, again, I highly recommend that you look at that and try to get that on your device. The PYE digital minutes that we've created. It's a faith lens, but it's not all scripture. It's tech advice and those kinds of things. And then Childhood 2.0. This is again that documentary that I mentioned. I highly recommend you watch it, and then again think of which kid or grandkid you watch it with the second time. And in that's Copy Me, Co-Play, Curiosity, Conversation, and Coaching, all part of that. You're watching it together. You're pausing to ask questions. You're having conversations. You're coaching them through things. An excellent, excellent resource. And again, I know it's really ironic we're on social media. And so follow us on Instagram. Excuse me. I can't stress enough. If you're going to follow us on one platform, please do Instagram. We've put a lot of effort into that. That's where we do the most in the moment. If there are articles or updates, those kind of things, we post on our Instagram. We don't wait for our newsletter to come out. It goes to Instagram right away. And so I would say if you want to follow us anywhere, I would say Instagram more than anything. But you can join the 30-some thousand followers that we have on these platforms. So, everybody close off the fire hose. We're done drinking from it. If you have to leave, I realize that I went a few minutes long, and so I apologize for that. If you need to leave, I am not offended if you gotta go. You know, if the timer's running on the babysitter, and if you can save 80 cents for a couple of payphone calls, go ahead and do that. But any questions based off of what we've talked about? Yeah.
I have two quick questions.
Absolutely.
One, just to function. Does your app have all the same content as your website?
Our app has a lot of the same content as our website, but it's broken in smaller digestible pieces. There's also content on our app that you can't find anywhere else. The curriculum that we have, the videos for you to watch with your kids, and they're broken down K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, grades those with discussion questions and follow-up. You can't get that anywhere else except on our app. So there's some content that's only there, but we take some of the content from our website, and our blog posts, our app reviews, all those kinds of things, and then break it into smaller digestible pieces. So if you're waiting for soccer practice to get done, you can thumb through a couple of the panels on there and read stuff and do those things there. What was the second question?
The second one is about the polite stranger. So that's where I'm struggling, is when I talk to my kid about talking to strangers on the internet.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, yeah, tell mom, I'm not going to go meet a stranger at the gas station.
Right.
And so trying to get to that point of understanding that's not the way this is going to be presented. Somebody's not going to say, come meet me at the gas station. I haven't
Right.
found an effective way to articulate that.
What I say with my kids, if you don't know them off the internet, you don't talk to them on the internet without mommy's permission. And so if they're playing a game and someone starts chatting with them, ignore them. That's the instruction. You need to ignore them. If it's somebody that you think sounds friendly, let me see what they're talking to you about. We need to be mindful of these things. Even some of for us as parents, we don't necessarily, maybe we knew somebody in high school, we don't know the kind of person that they are now. A friend requests you, and you're like, okay, cool. And then you're posting pictures of your kids in front of the school bus and all these other different things, and they're gathering information. We need to be mindful. I mean, we are creating a bunch of breadcrumbs of our kids without even their permission. of all the stuff that we're posting about our kids online. And they're going to be growing up in a world where there's pictures of them from birth until they're 18 years old that they had no control about. And so we need to be mindful of those kinds of things too as parents, thinking, just because we're on this amazing vacation doesn't mean I need to find my identity and value in what we did, or my kid is this or that. Share those things, but let's be careful that our identity and value isn't connected to our social media, our likes, our comments, and followers, and those kinds of things as well. That's why I start. If you don't know them off the internet, don't talk to them on the internet. And that's an easy way to start. Because yeah, it's the tricky people are the nicest people on the internet. Yeah.
Before everybody, they need to exit out, I just want to let them know about what time we'll be speaking tomorrow.
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Do you want a microphone, or can everybody hear?
In case they wanted to hear, the presentation on their children's campus. K through 2 tomorrow will be at 8:30, it'll be a 20-minute presentation. Grades 3 through 5 will start at 9:10. Grades 6 through 8 is at 10 o'clock, and that is an hour presentation. And then grades 9 through 12, the high school, is from 1 to 2. So again, grades K through 2 will start at 8:30 in the morning. 3 through 5 at the intermediate will start at 9:10. Junior high, 6 through 8 will be at 10 o'clock, and then high school, 9 through 12, will be at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
And that's why I travel with throat coat tea. Yeah. And again, I have no problem with you showing up as long as you sit in the back and keep your mouth shut. I'll just be honest. I'm just saying, I say that honestly because it can impact the conversation and vulnerability and questions of the students if they know that they're either their parents or their friends' parents are sitting in the back. I have no problem with you showing up. Just be invisible. All right? Cool. Any other questions? Again, yes.
How do you counsel your kids about sending pictures? Obviously, mine are younger, and so you don't want a picture of their parents or something. You just educate them and have a conversation. Like, what's the word that you use?
Are we talking about sexting specifically, or just pictures at all? Just sending pictures of themselves at all? Yeah, it's wanting to lay that groundwork. One, if you don't know them, don't send them stuff. It's just that people, again, they can be so tricky. They can work so hard to earn your kid's trust that your child has no idea that they're not who they say they are. It's like, no, this is my best friend. Mom, he lives in Belgium. This is the coolest thing. And it could be a dude that lives 3 doors down. So it's, again, I would say that if you're at that age, if they're younger, I would make sure they have a device that they can send pictures. Gap wireless, you can't send SMS text. It's only words. So I would say when they're younger, don't give them a device that they can. And then talk to them about some of the dangers that can be a part of that so that they're not taking pictures of themselves on their friends' devices and sending to get around. Because again, they're always going to find a way to get around it. So just have a conversation, and then from time to time ask, say, hey, we talked about this is really important to us. How you doing with that? Are you listening to what we're doing? Because again, and then rehearse the reasons why. Internet permanency is a major deal. There's stuff and images that get out there that will affect scholarships and jobs in the future. And your 8-year-old isn't going to get that. But your junior in high school who's starting to fill out college applications and already maybe has their first job, they're absolutely going to get some of those things. They may not think that what you're telling them is true, but it will impact them. Absolutely. So I would start in that way. And honestly, I would start with not giving them a device where they could do that in the first place. Yeah.
So, I guess we're kind of as parents playing catch up
Absolutely.
and understand a lot of this, and I think legislation is catching up as well. The laws are changing, but my question is are you aware of any resources for a parent who may have a child who has been contacted by a tricky person and who is, on the back end of, I want
scroll down and there is emergency help buttons, mental health, sexting, predator, and pornography. You tap the predator one, and it talks about a predator's reached out to my child, and it talks through what to do. I would highly recommend, and this comes from my next door neighbor, works at the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. It's actually through him that I met Chris early on before I was even affiliated with Protect Young Eyes. And the put it down and tell someone comes directly from him. Because it's his job to find people who produced, distributed, and held on to child pornography and to bring them to justice. And so he said, Doug, so many times parents will see that that this has happened, and they'll delete all of my evidence. So that's why our advice is to put it down and tell someone, not to put it down, delete it, tell someone. It's put it down and tell someone. And if law enforcement has to get involved, you then hand over the device. And I tell students, if you weren't seeking this, you're not going to be held responsible for the content. Just give it over, let them do it, and let them, some of them will then try to take over your child's account and pretend to be them to lure them in. Others will be able to use some of the, if they can most predators are hiding as much of this as possible, but there's IP addresses, other different things that they can pull from the metadata on the images in the video, then they're gonna try to get as much as they can. So I would say if it's serious stuff that's going on, you get law enforcement involved as soon as possible. But I would absolutely start with, I need to see it, and please, oh please don't delete the stuff. That's going to be because we're going to be so disgusted and so bothered and so angered that this happened, you just want to get rid of it because it just gets your blood boiling thinking that it's even on your kid's device. But please don't delete it. Get law enforcement involved as soon as possible. And again, a lot of it is going to be important on how you react in that moment when you learn about that, whether it's accidentally or by your kid coming and being open and honest about it. The way you respond in that moment, keep calm. Act, don't react in that moment, because you're setting the table for if this happens again, set the likelihood of them ever coming back to you about this again. Does that get at part of you? Does that help, or is there follow-up, pushback?
It does, but I led with that question. We're playing catch up as parents, legislators are trying to catch up, but I think a lot of our law enforcement is catching up as well as far as what to do. When we give consequences to the child, and then a lot of times we just kind of feel like there's nothing we can do for this mystery person that contacted them online.
Yep, and that's why you're getting them involved, so if anything criminal happens, they can do the best that they can. And the reason why I say do that is because if you just ignore them, or you block them, or you report them, they're just going to delete that account and create another one and go on to another kid. And so that's why I say getting law enforcement involved as soon as you can. That possibly prohibits them from doing this to other people's kids in the future. It's just a critical piece to that. And letting your kids know that if this happens, they aren't going to be the ones that are in trouble. We just need to protect them. Any other questions? All right, cool. I'm going to stand up here. If you have any more private questions or examples you want to ask or those kinds of things, I'm here to help. Anything you want to do as you wrap things up.